I told my boyfriend I was busy. He snapped at me. I mentioned breaking up. He refused. Then I realized I ticked been done for a while. I am feeling quite distressed about my boyfriend, who is 17 years old, after he escalated a minor disagreement regarding my personal attitude issues. Earlier today, he asked me repeatedly if something was wrong or if I was upset. I consistently replied that I was simply tired. With each inquiry, my frustration grew, as is natural for anyone in such a situation. Eventually, I felt compelled to tell him I was fine and to leave me alone. Later in the day after school, an adult at school informed me that I needed to get a snack, as it is mandatory. My boyfriend echoed this suggestion and I responded, "I will get it in a moment. I am busy right now." He then rolled his eyes and muttered, "Okay, thanks for the attitude." I looked up, bewildered, as he walked away, having not displayed any attitude in my tone. Even a friend who witnessed the exchange was puzzled. I later discussed this with other friends, and I believe he overheard because he sent me a lengthy text message. Since I cannot attach images, I will simply transcribe his message. "Now you are avoiding me. Thanks for lying directly to my face. Clearly, you are upset about something else. It is evident that you are. Now you are acting immature, openly conversing with others while disregarding me after brushing me off. You would think the world is ending just because I mentioned your attitude. Thank you for creating unnecessary stress for someone who has cared for you and who is currently facing difficulties because I choose to love you. Honestly, I am sitting right here, in the club, just hearing you. I do not understand what is happening with you, but you have no right to treat me like this. Since it is clear you do not want to talk to me, I am going home." So immature. My boyfriend tends to make a person feel guilty for being upset about anything or for not communicating with him. It feels as though I must talk to him constantly, or else I am labeled as an inconsiderate jerk or an unkind person. I am unsure of what to do. Should I end the relationship with him? Update 1. So, last night around 10 p.m., I told him we were finished and that he would not win me back. He attempted to assert that I was being childish again, and I informed him that I was not ending the relationship over a minor issue. He refused to honor my desire to end things, claiming that I was being unreasonable and unfair to him for no valid reason. He asked what he had done wrong, so I outlined several issues. Unfortunately, I cannot share screenshots, so I will relay the conversation we had, still uncertain if what I said makes me in the wrong. I begin responding to the earlier message from the first part of this post. 1. Okay. 2. Hey, you didn't even respond to me, Noah. 3. Is this really how we are going to handle things today? I am not in the mood for this nonsense anymore. 4. Whatever. 5. We are finished. 6. I can't keep tiptoeing around you. 7. It feels like I constantly do something wrong. 8. I'm not saying this just because, oh no, you called me out on my attitude. It is the end of the world. 9. You think I am being childish. 10. You need to examine yourself before coming after me. 11. I am done with you. Our relationship is over. 12. And I lied earlier. 13. When you asked if I saw a future together. 14. I was dishonest. 15. I genuinely don't envision a future for us. 16. Ever. 17. Goodbye forever, I suppose. 18. And do not even attempt to speak to me tomorrow because I will not want to engage. 19. Also. 20. You never use my preferred name or pronouns. 21. So, forget you. This is where he begins to respond. 1. I'm not here to make you feel worse than you already do. 2. I would appreciate it if you would allow me to explain my message. If you lack the time, I can summarize. 3. Actually, I would rather write it out here since I do not think a voice message conveys it as clearly. 4. Regarding your preferred name and pronouns, it has never been my intention to misgender you in any way. I have never previously dated anyone who identifies as male. You are the first. I fully support your identity and genuinely appreciate your willingness to share that with me. 5. When addressing you, I have found it challenging to adapt to using he/him pronouns. It is entirely my fault for not remembering to use them properly. 6. I sincerely apologize for that. Adjusting to this change has required me to process many of my own feelings about our relationship, which has ultimately made me a more open person. 7. I believe it would have been very helpful if you had reminded me when I misgendered you previously. If I am not corrected in the moment, I believe you are accepting those pronouns. While I recognize my mistake in not remembering, I cannot read your mind. I am a human who makes errors and it was not intentional. 8. You have every right to feel angry and hurt by that. 9. Now, regarding the tiptoeing. Noah, I love you. I cherish and respect you for who you are. However, I cannot provide the support you need if you are not open about your feelings. You have previously indicated that it is particularly hard for you to open up because some individuals do not listen due to your tendency to ramble or shame you for what you express. The truth is, I do not have complete insight into your struggles. I cannot support you in your fights if I do not have the necessary information. I am willing to listen to what is making you feel that you need to tiptoe around me. You are likely correct about some or all of the situations. We cannot grow together as a couple if we do not discuss what needs to be addressed. 10. I do not want you to remain upset. 11. I believe this has created the largest division in our relationship. 12. I want to improve. 13. You do not have to reply immediately. I simply want you to know that regardless of your feelings, I am here to comfort and support you in any way necessary. I apologize for any harm I may have caused. 14. I hope you have a pleasant night. I hope we can talk soon, ideally in person, if you are open to it. Me again. 1. I do not want to speak to you today, tomorrow, or any day. Yes, the forget you comment was intense, but I meant it and will not retract it. I do not understand what you do not comprehend about the fact that we are done. I no longer wish to be in this relationship. I cannot tolerate it. I cannot tolerate you. I will not talk to you tomorrow, so do not approach me and get upset when I push you away, as I have warned you. Him. 1. I understand, but telling me you hate me is not constructive. 2. What did I do wrong? 3. At least inform me of that. Me, assertively. 1. I never said I hated you. 2. It is many things. It encompasses all the disputes from weeks past, the small annoyances I have with you. We shouldn't have this many disagreements if we were meant to last. I genuinely believe this is me liberating myself from the relationship. I should not have entered into a relationship with you as quickly as I did. I do not care about your ex at all and have always disliked hearing about her. I loathe that I cannot even get through a day without talking to you, without it meaning something is wrong or that I am at fault. I deeply resented your controlling and obsessive behavior towards me. I initially dismissed it as you being clingy, and I did not mind that. However, being controlling and obsessive is where I draw the line. 3. I understand you are facing challenges, but I have been through difficult situations my entire life. You believe you have it tough because your mother and sister are problematic. I do not even see my mom. I do not live with her or get to be around her. My older sister left me with our grandmother, who disliked me for most of my life. We only began to bond after I started attending Portage. 4. I hated hearing about your family issues. At least you reside with your parents. 5. At least you have your own phone, your own privacy, and your own belongings. 6. I wanted to yell at you numerous times to tell you off whenever you complained about your mother being cruel and unkind. However, I am too nice of a person and never did. 7. Additionally, regarding my preferred name, I attempted to inform you multiple times, but apparently you did not listen. 8. I am thoroughly finished with you. 9. I mean it. 10. This is not merely me being emotional. Believe me, I am holding back a lot. 11. But I am finished. 12. We are over. 13. That is the conclusion. 14. Period. 15. I do not wish to discuss it tomorrow or the day after or any day after. There is nothing more to discuss. Story 2. I reunited with my first love, Dory, after years. She proposed with her ex's ring. Shocked, I threw it out the window during a fight. I understand that the title may seem harsh, but I ask for your patience. I apologize for the length of this post. For privacy, I will be using fictitious names. I, 29F, have been involved with my fiancé, Dory, 31F, on and off since high school. We have known each other since infancy, as our mothers were childhood friends, which has kept our families close. Dory was my first love. We began dating when I was a freshman in high school, and we were each other's firsts in every aspect. I genuinely believed we would be together indefinitely. However, upon her graduation, she decided to pause our relationship, expressing that she was uncomfortable continuing while I was still in high school. She assured me she would wait for me, and although I was heartbroken, I accepted her decision. Unfortunately, I later discovered that during our separation, she had emotionally betrayed me with another girl, someone she ultimately began dating. My friends urged me to move on, but that was not possible for me. I was devastated. After I graduated, I attended college 5 hours away alongside my two best friends, Theodore 29M and Mavis 29F. I refrained from dating anyone during my first year, but in my second year, at the age of 19, I met Hazel 29F, and we entered into a relationship. We remained together even after completing college. Hazel and I cohabitated, along with Mavis, and she became an integral part of my life. My family cherished her, my friends adored her, and even Dory's family liked her. The same was true for Hazel's family and friends. However, when I turned 25, Hazel unexpectedly ended our relationship. She claimed she no longer had feelings for me and wanted to explore life. I was utterly heartbroken. The breakup affected me so severely that I resigned from my job and returned to my hometown. Mavis chose to stay behind but moved in with another friend, while Hazel severed contact with all of us except for Theodore, with whom she still communicates. Back home, I resided with my younger sister, Gypsy 26F, who was 22 at the time. It provided comfort to have my family and childhood friends close again. A few months after my return, Gypsy and I received an invitation to Dory's younger brother Roland's 19M 14th birthday party, which was being hosted at their parents' home. I anticipated encountering Dory, but I decided to attend anyway. The party was incredibly enjoyable. Dory and I spoke and re-established our friendship. I also got the chance to reconnect with many people I hadn't seen in ages. Dory was no longer with the woman she had left me for. They had been engaged, but that didn't last. After several months of restoring our friendship, we began dating once more. I realized I still had feelings for her, and we have been together since then. Just a few days after our anniversary, she proposed to me with a beautiful ring. We were thrilled and planned to surprise everyone with our engagement. Gypsy was organizing a large celebration for her and Roland, who had recently moved into a small apartment together. They had been in a relationship for almost 2 years and had worked hard to secure their own place, so they wanted to commemorate it. Dory and I thought it would be an ideal occasion to announce our engagement. I checked with Gypsy to ensure she was okay with it, and she gave me her blessing. The celebration was scheduled to take place at Dory and Roland's mother's house, which featured a spacious field perfect for gathering. On the day of the party, the guest list included my family, Dory's family, Gypsy's friends, Roland's friends, and a handful of our closest friends. It was a sizable gathering, and when we announced our engagement, everyone was ecstatic. I spent my time showcasing my ring to Mavis and Gypsy, the three of us bubbling with excitement as we discussed wedding plans and shared ideas for our special day. Then Theodore approached, noticed my ring, and immediately gave me a peculiar look. I sensed something was amiss, and he pulled me aside to speak privately. Once we were alone, he informed me that the ring Dory had given me was the very same one she had used to propose to her ex. I was completely taken aback. I was at a loss for words. I didn't want a ring that once belonged to the woman who had emotionally betrayed me and left me behind. Honestly, I felt repulsed. A wave of embarrassment and anguish washed over me. Tears began to stream down my face as I struggled to process what he had just revealed. Dory eventually approached me, but I couldn't bear to face her. Instead, I simply informed everyone that I needed to leave. Without further explanation, Dory and I departed the party. Throughout the entire drive home, she pressed me, asking what was wrong. When I finally disclosed the truth, my emotions overwhelmed me. I told her I knew about the ring, and I raised my voice, expressing how humiliated I felt. I demanded to know if her family and friends were aware. She confessed that she had informed her mother and grandmother a few days before the party, and neither had said a word to me. That was the breaking point for me. Without giving it much thought, I rolled down the window, removed the ring from my finger, and threw it out. Dory witnessed my actions and immediately pulled over to the side of the road. She shouted at me. "Why did you do that?" I replied. "I will not be tied to a ring that belonged to the woman you left me for and emotionally betrayed me with. I deserve more than a hand-me-down something that carries such painful memories for me. Proposing to me with this ring makes me feel unimportant, as if you didn't love me enough to choose something special just for me." Dory was furious with me. She insisted, "It's just a ring, so what if someone else wore it? We can create new memories with it. The past is the past." We were young and made mistakes, but you forgave me. Now it's time to move forward or there won't be a wedding at all." I simply told her, "That's fine by me." Dory exited the car and searched for the ring in the darkness, but it was nowhere to be found. We returned home in complete silence. She slept on the couch that night, and for the following days, we barely communicated. Then I received a call from Dory's best friend, Tina. She berated me, calling me a huge fool for discarding an expensive ring, and labeled me a spoiled, narcissistic brat who believes the world revolves around me. She hung up before I could respond, leaving me in tears. Dory seemed indifferent. She walked past me, even as I sobbed on the floor. I felt incredibly fragile, utterly weak. Mavis, my best friend, called to check on me. Upon hearing the entire story, she immediately drove 5 hours to see me and took me out for the day while Dory was at work. Roland also reached out to me. He apologized, mentioning that he had noticed the ring at the party but hadn't said anything at the time. He later spoke with Theodore and Gypsy, and now all three of them are infuriated with Dory. Apparently, Tina has been posting negative things about me on social media, but Theodore confronted her and revealed the entire situation. Now the rest of our friends are aware, and many have reached out to offer their support. They initially assumed I knew about the ring and was okay with it because Dory and Tina had told them otherwise. Dory's mother attempted to call me, but I blocked her number. I also blocked Tina. Some of Dory's other friends, the ones I actually like, have reached out to see how I am doing. My parents, particularly my mother and father, are furious with Dory and no longer wish to associate with her. I am contemplating moving out for the time being. Theodore has offered me a place to stay with him and his girlfriend. Roland and Gypsy have also extended an invitation, but I don't want to intrude on Gypsy and Roland's new apartment, so I will probably stay with Theodore. Despite everything, I still wish to reconcile with Dory. However, I can't shake the feeling that this is all my fault. She won't speak to me, she simply ignores me, as if she is devoid of any emotion. Most of my friends understand why I discarded the ring. Mavis and Theodore have said they would have reacted the same way. Only Tina and Dory seem to be upset with my actions. At this point, I just feel a deep sense of guilt. This has been one of the most challenging periods of my life. I regret how I have treated Dory. I fear that I have not fully forgiven her. My friends and family insist otherwise. So, am I the antagonist for throwing the ring out the window and potentially ruining my relationship? Story 3. My 34F ex-friend, 34F, hit on my date, lied about a promotion, and now we share an office. How do I stay sane? This is a lengthy post, and I apologize for that. I am experiencing a significant amount of pent-up frustration regarding this entire situation and lack anyone to discuss it with, so I feel compelled to express everything. I am adding this note after composing the previous text. This is a full-blown stream of consciousness rant. It felt very therapeutic, but I apologize for any run on sentences, poor grammar, subpar storytelling, or typographical errors. I, 34 years old, female, used to have a really close friendship with a coworker, Cindy, 34 years old, female. We clicked right away. I began working a few months before her, and we were both single at that time. We frequently went out for post-work drinks and socialized with friends on weekends. We shared countless enjoyable moments together, and I genuinely felt as though I had rediscovered a sister in her. Eventually, we took a long weekend trip together to a neighboring country by train. We live in Europe. A man, Luca, 35 years old, male, with whom I had been casually dating resided there, and I asked Cindy if she would be comfortable with him joining us for the first night, only the first night, to show us some places we might not discover on our own. She was excited about the idea. At that time, Cindy was in a committed relationship with a guy, but was on an extended travel sabbatical that had been planned before they got together. We arrived at the hotel after having a few drinks and began getting ready before Luca came to meet us. Cindy and I shared a room, as we anticipated not spending much time in the hotel. Luca texted us that he would be arriving in 15 minutes, and we had just finished getting ready. He arrived, entered the room, and I formally introduced him to Cindy. I offered him a drink before we headed out. Without any warning, Cindy stripped completely topless, claiming she wanted to change outfits. Luca immediately turned to face the door as she changed. Though it was somewhat awkward, I was familiar enough with Cindy to know that she enjoyed being a bit wild and sought attention. It didn't bother me because I am somewhat similar, albeit not to the extent of undressing in front of a stranger. At the time, I thought to myself, "Oh, that's just Cindy." My involvement with Luca wasn't serious. He was merely someone to enjoy time with during my visits to that city. Thus, I didn't feel disrespected because Cindy was aware of my feelings toward him. We went out, and Cindy began flirting heavily with Luca. I honestly didn't mind because I was just thrilled they were getting along and that there wasn't an awkward vibe. I knew she liked the attention, and I was happy she felt good. However, there were moments that annoyed me. During dinner, Luca went outside to smoke and Cindy followed him. Up until that point, she had never smoked around me. My mother passed away from lung cancer, so I hold a deep sensitivity toward smoking. Luca was unaware of my mother's history. After dinner, Cindy took Luca by the arm and skipped off with him, leaving me standing alone. It didn't leave me feeling great. I filmed this moment because we had consumed quite a bit of alcohol, and I wanted to see if the video would present differently the next day with a clearer mind. We had drunk a lot that evening. I pulled Cindy aside and asked if she would be comfortable with him staying in our hotel room since I didn't want him to drive. Although Luca insisted he was fine to drive, I felt uneasy about him making the hour-long journey back home. I told her I would pay for a hotel room for him if she was not comfortable with him staying with us. I thought if I asked him to book his own room, he would likely choose to drive home instead. She was completely fine with him staying over. I made sure to ask several times and encouraged her to express her feelings candidly because her comfort was my priority. If she wanted, I could just get him a room elsewhere. She assured me it was okay, and we pushed the two beds together. The next morning, Luca was gone. I asked Cindy if she knew when he had left and why. She hesitated to answer until I asked again, at which point she claimed he had left because I was snoring. This was a very sensitive topic for me. At that time, I had a scheduled nose surgery because my nasal passages were irregularly shaped, making it difficult for me to breathe while exercising and sleeping. Hearing this immediately hurt me, and I took her word for it. We had a fantastic weekend, and Luca was never mentioned again, so I put the entire incident behind me. After we returned, I received a message from Luca stating he hadn't wanted to contact me while he knew Cindy and I were still together. He essentially told me that I had fallen asleep instantly, and Cindy climbed on top of him and began sucking on his fingers. That was why he left. I believed him. I understand how Cindy craves attention. This also clarified her reactions and subtle expressions when I had asked her where he had gone, which I initially thought was due to her not wanting to hurt my feelings. I didn't bring it up with Cindy. I lacked deep feelings for Luca, and she was aware of that. I assumed Cindy was embarrassed because she was in a committed relationship with a remarkable guy and feared the consequences of her actions. I held out hope that she would eventually come to me and discuss it herself, so I never broached the topic. I didn't want to accuse her, nor did I want her to lie to me. I just hoped she would come clean about it, and we could move past it together. Our workplace was undergoing an organizational reshuffling. Everyone within the organization spoke to the big boss about where they envisioned themselves and their aspirations for the future. My conversation with the big boss did not go well. I had hoped for a position that aligned with my education and background, but he indicated he did not see me in that role. I was truly devastated. Naturally, I confided in Cindy and cried to her about it for the following days. This position would have been my dream job, and I felt completely crushed, demotivated, and frankly humiliated by how the big boss had addressed me. A few days after my meeting with him, Cindy had her own meeting. She sent me a lengthy voice note afterward, sharing how the big boss praised her, commended her outstanding work, and offered her any position she desired, including the one I had hoped for. She lacked any education or background in that specific field. I was utterly devastated, especially because of how she shared this information with me through a voice note detailing how amazing he said she was, finishing it with, "Oh, it sounds like I'm bragging, haha." I couldn't comprehend what was wrong with my work or background that prevented me from being granted the position I wanted, so I approached the big boss and directly asked him. It turned out he never offered her that position. He genuinely wanted her to remain in her current role because it played a crucial part in the organization. Upon hearing that, I severed all contact with her immediately and without explanation. She has attempted to reach out to me several times, I blocked her, and initiated conversations with me in the workplace, but I continue to avoid her. I simply cannot handle the dishonesty, and I am sure if I confronted her about it, I would only be lied to again. I could not endure that sense of betrayal once more. The issue is that we are now part of the same small team, working in a shared open office space. I have effectively isolated myself from the team entirely because I do not want to interact with her. I refrain from attending after-work drinks or coffee breaks with them because being around her provokes intense anger. This situation makes me appear to be the villain, while she is perceived as the fun and enjoyable person. Meanwhile, every time she makes one of her many comments about being a girl's girl or announces how she is a feminist, I have to restrain myself from sending her screenshots from Luca or telling her I spoke with the big boss regarding the positions he supposedly offered her. I am the only one suffering in this situation, and I fully recognize that I am inflicting this on myself. I understand I need to mature, move on, and act professionally by attending the after-work social gatherings and coffee breaks, but the lack of justice drives me absolutely insane. How does everything fall into place for her while I continue to inflict suffering upon myself to avoid conflict, knowing that interacting with her would cut too deeply because of her betrayal? How can I overcome these emotions to better integrate into the team? Story 4. My BF, 27M, and I, 26F, broke up after living together. We both still care for each other but have issues to deal with. We were trying to be friends, but he wants to be together. Am I being manipulated? Hello, everyone. This may become somewhat perplexing. I am not the best storyteller, and this is my inaugural Reddit post. I genuinely need someone to converse with. I kindly ask for your understanding and patience as I am doing my utmost. My boyfriend, 27 years old, and I, 26 years old, were together for nearly 4 years. For context, he has been my longest and most serious relationship. I met him through Tinder, and while it began as a casual encounter, he quickly evolved into my best friend, making it effortless to discuss life with him. Initially, our serious relationship was wonderful, but it deteriorated rapidly as unresolved issues and boundaries remained ignored. I felt that whenever I expressed my concerns, he would become upset with me instead of acknowledging the underlying problems. I tried not to blame him and viewed it as a case of us versus the issue, but that mindset never worked with him, and I believe many problems escalated because of it. When the relationship ended, we both exchanged hurtful words. His actions and remarks deeply affected my feelings. I was primarily frustrated and at my wits' end with the responsibilities of caring for him, taking on more of a maternal role than a girlfriend, something we never agreed upon. I perceived his behavior as immature. Sadly, I constantly felt that he placed his needs above mine, and I made that clear to him, pointing out that this was not the first time I had described him as selfish. Our breakup was not unexpected, and it was not our first separation, either. However, truly cohabitating was a new experience for both of us, and our issues magnified under the same roof. Ultimately, I desired a partner with whom I could share unconditional love and who understood how to make me feel safe and happy. As our relationship progressed, I realized I became increasingly irritated with him because I was doing the majority of the cleaning in our apartment, despite working 2 jobs, one of which included 12-hour shifts on weekends. I was exhausted from work and only requested consistent help with household chores since his schedule meant he was often home. He would stay awake all night and then sleep throughout the day. He owns his own business, and while he had sufficient work, he was generally home sleeping during the day. When he moved in, I established some ground rules. If he was going to be present at home, he needed to assist in tidying up his messes, washing dishes, etc., and take my dog outside so she wouldn't be cooped up inside for 12 hours a day while I was at work. My mother used to take care of that, but since he moved in, he claimed he could manage it instead of her coming over frequently. I also stressed the importance of having time to myself in the apartment. I am an independent woman, and he was aware of this from our first encounter. I value my solitude and now realize how problematic that was for him. It required him to engage in activities outside the apartment when he wasn't working instead of sleeping all day. He agreed to these conditions, but everything fell apart while we lived together. I am not joking. He rarely left the apartment unless it was for work or to grab coffee or food. I never had time alone unless I went out somewhere, and I didn't always feel like driving around. Consequently, I ended up cleaning up after two people daily, even on my days off, while he slept since he would stay up all night. I have no issue with those who adopt that lifestyle, but it is not mine, and it was unfair for him to impose his routine on me without providing some assistance. As the relationship drew to a close, I felt as though I was acting as his mother, cleaning up after him and constantly nagging him. I was overwhelmed by the lack of personal time, but constantly had to think about him. I didn't want to feel that way in my own home. This situation also distressed him, which I can understand, as it is uncomfortable to be continually reminded of one's shortcomings or to hear that a loved one needs space. He would never heed my concerns and would become defensive immediately, possibly gaslighting. I am honestly unsure, but whenever I brought up problems, he would quickly shift the focus onto his grievances about me, and we would never address my issues because, according to him, I always made things into a power struggle. He would mention my lack of concern for him or make remarks about how he just wanted to engage with someone who validated him, indicating he felt he didn't have that. If you knew me, you would recognize how much I care about him, and I frequently express that to him. However, whenever a conflict arises, he throws it back in my face. I am a people pleaser and easily manipulated when I feel I have hurt someone or made their life more challenging. It troubles me because one of the first instances I told him I felt invalidated when discussing something with him, due to his reactions, he began using that against me whenever I tried to raise an issue. I genuinely do comprehend his perspective and how he could feel hurt by my actions or words during our relationship. He is a sensitive man who has endured significant hardships outside of our relationship while we were together. Both of us are also grappling with mental health challenges. I fully recognize that one cannot change another person, but someone's treatment and behavior towards you can change, and I do not believe I am asking too much for that to improve. I have always taken responsibility for my mistakes and sought various ways to approach issues differently with him. I am an honest individual, and I do sincerely love him. He is my first true love, and I do not think that bond will ever fade. After he moved out, we cooperated to ensure the transition was amicable while he retrieved his belongings and found a new place to live. I still consider him one of my closest friends. I made it clear that I was single during our discussions, and we even talked about how we would feel if we began seeing other people. We both still expressed a desire to remain friends, and I must admit that I slept with him when he came over. Typically, we shared great sexual chemistry, but I am aware that we have different perspectives on sex, and I think I made a mistake in that regard. I did not want the relationship to end, neither of us did, but we acknowledged that we were neither happy nor healthy in our living situation. Thus, it was challenging for me to fully let go of him, hence the sex and the time spent together. I do not believe I was attempting to lead him on, as I was initiating discussions with him when he came over to collect his belongings. I do not wish for him to be sad or upset with me. I know I hold significance in his life, but sometimes his treatment of me does not reflect that. The last time we met, it truly struck me how often he prioritizes himself or seems unaware of the issues I have been facing. I realize that this is not the future I desire. We spoke a couple of days ago, and I recognized I should not have engaged because I was irritable, fatigued, and stressed, fearing I would simply become annoyed. However, there were certain matters I wanted to discuss. Afterwards, he sent me a heartfelt and considerate text, offering to assist me with things I wanted to explore and alleviate some of my stress. I was torn because I love him, and it was a kind gesture, but it felt like an unreasonable expectation, especially since I communicated that I had a lot going on in my life at the moment. While I understand he was trying to be considerate, I am uncertain about my feelings now, so I took a day to formulate a response. I worried that whatever I said might upset him, and I suppose I know him well enough since he essentially texted me, "Never mind," which prompted me to feel obligated to respond. In a courteous way, I expressed that his offer was very sweet and thoughtful, but it was not what I needed at that moment. He became extremely angry, and it felt as though we were experiencing another breakup. I feel awful for hurting his feelings. I care for him deeply, but I also cannot determine whether I am being manipulated. I sense he is instilling guilt in me because he fears being alone or starting fresh with someone new. What should I do? My heart aches, and I am confused about whether this person is merely using me. I also struggle to comprehend my own feelings, leading to frustration with myself. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. I apologize for the length of this post. Story 5. I ended my 9-year relationship, fell for a friend, and they love me back. But distance and our struggles keep us apart. What now? My life is currently a complete disaster, and I feel the same way. Each day, I grapple with maintaining my composure and progressing. I do not wish to compose a lengthy narrative about my life here, yet I feel compelled to express my thoughts because I cannot confide in anyone about this situation. I recently parted ways with my partner of 9 years for several reasons, one of the most significant being that I fell in love with another person. I came to understand that I was no longer happy and had no feelings of love for my partner. They were simply not what I desired. I have always struggled with emotional and social issues, consistently failing to forge my own friendships or relationships. I have predominantly been a grumpy, introverted individual who remains at home, occasionally attempting to reach out for some kind of connection. Despite enjoying my solitary lifestyle, I have battled loneliness throughout my life. Every friend or relationship I have ever had involved extroverted persons who pulled me from my dark corner and claimed me as their own. Due to my yearning for companionship and love, I accepted these connections. Naturally, I would allow it with people I connected with, yet I never cultivated friendships by my own choice and never considered this important, especially as I find it increasingly difficult to make friendships these days. A few months ago, I began taking medication for depression and anxiety, and it felt as though I awakened. I examined my life and my relationship and realized that none of this was what I desired. My partner was trapped in a cycle of misery that they had created over the years, and despite my love for them, I recognized that I was not in love with them as I had always believed. I realized I had not been a good partner. After being with them for 9 years, I sacrificed a great deal of my life for the sake of our relationship, convinced that this was what I wanted. I expressed that it was my desire and I made a promise. However, I felt profoundly sad and lonely, and they were often absent. When they were present, the focus was primarily on their own misery, their distaste for everything, and their unwillingness to engage in activities. I felt isolated, unseen, and guilty for my emotions. Eventually, it became unbearable, and I discussed the possibility of leaving with them. Now, I am back home, attempting to rebuild my life from scratch. Now, allow me to introduce my friend, the individual I believe could genuinely be the love of my life. I met them in June of last year and felt an immediate connection. This is the first true friendship I have ever formed on my own. They are the first person I have consciously chosen to have in my life, rather than simply being told we are friends. We have been in constant communication every day since our initial meeting. They have become my favorite person, my best friend. I have never felt such strong emotions towards anyone, neither my long-term partner, my biggest teenage crush, nor anyone in my family or among my friends. I am completely infatuated with them. I crave every moment with them. Once I realized that I had developed feelings for them, I felt utterly terrible ashamed. Here I was, having married and relocated to another country for my partner, intending to be with them indefinitely, and believing I was completely devoted. Yet I fell in love with someone new. I still feel repugnant, but I recognize that leaving was the right decision before I could do any real harm and inflict more pain than I already had. My greatest anguish and challenge now is that, although I am not prepared to swiftly move on from a 9-year relationship, I envision being together with them every day. I deeply desire to organize my life, reach my goals, become the person I aspire to be, and do everything possible to make this person happy and secure their affection. The frustrating yet comforting aspect is that they want me as well. We have discussed this multiple times, and they confessed to me the other evening, while intoxicated, that they have also fallen in love with me. While this would be wonderful, they live in the United States, and I have returned home to Canada after previously moving to the US for a relationship that I never fully finalized in terms of residency through marriage. We both find ourselves in remarkably similar life circumstances, and neither of us has the means to support the other or accomplish much at this moment. We both require substantial personal work, and we desire to remain where we are. I certainly do not wish to return to the U.S., particularly not to their state, and no offense intended, but especially not given the country's current situation. However, I could never ask them to abandon their home, family, friends, and support system, especially after they have worked so hard on their own well-being after previously being in a toxic relationship that caused them immense pain. They have endured so much, and they require time to heal and care for themselves. I long to be the person they can rely on, providing them with love and safety, ensuring that they will never again live in fear of being mistreated. Yet, I feel like a nobody, at rock bottom, unable to do anything to be with them. We have discussed this and somewhat agreed that neither of us wishes to relocate or enter into another long-distance relationship. However, the way things are progressing feels as though we are already in a relationship that neither of us acknowledges or allows ourselves to hope could succeed. It pains me daily to love them so intensely, and I fear I may never experience love like this again. What if I go through life feeling unhappy because they were my soulmate, whom I could never have? The last thing I want is to sever ties and lose them completely. I care for them deeply, and they reciprocate that feeling. They are my sole source of joy at the moment, and I feel elated when I spend time with them. Even receiving a message from them brings me immense excitement. I feel utterly lost. I have no idea what steps I should take at this point. This has indeed turned into a lengthy narrative. If you took the time to read this, I appreciate it, even if I do not understand why you did. I am feeling quite vulnerable right now, and I sincerely needed to express these feelings.